Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I want to talk about Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition, and I specifically want to talk about party unity and what it means in the game. So, basically, I think right now, I don't think a lot of Dungeon Masters actually reward party unity the way they should. And you could tell this because if you go to YouTube or you go to Twitter, you just hear all kinds of nonsense stories about players misbehaving and really being far worse to each other than the enemies the dungeon master is setting forward. Okay, so you have that going on, right? And the reason why I'm talking about this today, I've been watching the Formula One Drive to Survive, and it's an in-depth breakdown of Formula One racing, and it's really fascinating. I'm absolutely loving it. And one of the things that they show is the structure of Formula One racing is that there are 10 teams, and each team has 2 cars, 2 drivers. Well, because Formula One is so competitive, and these Formula One race car drivers really don't often very much do not care where they're at. They care that they're in a Formula One car, but they don't really care which, right? And they will absolutely outrace their teammate, right? And so the word teammate is very much in air quotes for Formula One racing, right? And I feel like a lot of parties, this is the case. Now, there's good news. Dungeons & Dragons 5th Edition gives Dungeon Masters all the tools they need to reward party unity. But I don't think Dungeon Masters use it. So in Formula One racing, just to explain how bad this situation is, where if you don't have party unity like on the field, it's going to cost you badly. The most dramatic example of this was, I think it was 3 years ago. Red Bull it was Max Verstappen, who's an absolutely amazing driver today, and I think he was racing Paul Ricciardo, I think, who's an Australian. Max Verstappen, I think, is German. And then Paul Ricciardo, I think, is Australian, and they were like I think they were doing extremely well. They were high up in positions. They were in point positions where if you come, like, I think you get points all the way down to like position 8, right? Maybe as deep as position 10, right? But and points are used at the end of the season to determine who the best teams are, right? So when you race your car, you want to earn points, right? Of course you want a podium, and of course you want to come in first place. But if you even get some points, you could say, okay, well, that race wasn't for nothing. But if you come in like 11th to 20th position, there's only 20 cars that run in a Formula One race. 10 teams, 2 cars. Every single race, you got 20 cars running, right? Maybe less if a car's out, right? So basically, the way this works is Red Bull had 2 drivers, and Max Verstappen, I think it was Max Verstappen in the back. He was in the back. Yeah, he just slammed right into Paul Ricciardo, taking both cars out of the race, right? So they got no points, and they spent millions of dollars having to rebuild two Formula One race cars for a crash that was literally between teammates, right? So it was absolutely brutal. And I think we as Dungeon Masters need to realize this. If your player characters are bickering and fighting and they're not aligned and they're not in unity, then basically we can't punish them for that, right? What we can do is, if they go into a fight together, right? They're not being surprised, right? And they look together and then they do some planning. You could say, oh, hey, you guys did some planning. I'm going to give everybody inspiration. Great job, okay? Just even if they just plan together, right? Then, as soon as they launch into combat, and I mean every single combat, right? If they do any planning together, even if they're just like, one person's like, I'm going to put a buff on this other person, right? If they do anything to cooperate, give the whole team inspiration to go into the combat, right? Then, in addition to that, when they go forward and nobody Leroy Jenkins, they should get 250 XP across the board, right? And you're just telling them, listen, your unity has value. When you work together, when you battle together, when you act as a team and you act like you appreciate the other player characters helping you and the other players being at the table, that will be rewarded. Okay, and then like if they do that for like a month or two, and they'll get in the habit. And like as soon as anybody, Leroy Jenkins, they don't get the XP. And if they don't do any planning, or if the planning is them just a bunch of bickering, right, they don't get any inspiration. See what it's like to go into battle with inspiration across the team and 250 XP for everybody. That's a good setup, right? Whereas if you go in with no inspiration and no XP, if they still don't get it, then you should start hammering them, right? You could go, oh, the Leroy Jenkins, the Leroy Jenkins gives the entire team disadvantage on on your next round, right? Because the group, because one person is disconnected from the group and doesn't really know what the group is doing, and the rest of the group is frustrated, right? So that's the way to handle this situation. And I think, and the reason why I'm talking about this today is if you watch Formula One Drive to Survive, you could see a team that doesn't have unity, a team that is not focused on working together, they're not going to succeed. It's just the way it is. And the reality is, when you're in an environment where every creature is trying to defeat you, right, and and then you can't even have enough unity within your team to work together, it just doesn't work. It's a failure from the beginning. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.